Okay, so we've got our base made. We've measured up 17mm precisely. We've got it precisely in the middle. We've piloted and we've drilled our 10mm hole. We're now ready to take to the next stage, which is going to be to put the top on. Now before we do that, you might notice that here is not perfectly straight. So we can go up to the belt sander. Now this can be dangerous if you don't do it this way. Keep your fingers well away. Go down to the bed of the belt sander. This is the bed of the belt sander, and we're going to push towards very, very slowly, making sure it doesn't rock over, and then gradually apply pressure until we get this top surface smooth. When it is smooth, we take a piece of MDF and we're going to screw it in place. Okay, so it is now flat here. We're going to take a piece of MDF that's been cut for us. This might be too big, so we're going to put it up against it. We're going to make sure it's very, very flush on this side and it's flush on this side. And we're going to mark on the overhanging side with a pencil and a pencil. So now we've got a mark on here and we can go to the belt sander. We're going to sand it down to our pencil mark. We're going to sand it down to our pencil mark. When we come back, our piece of MDF fits perfectly our box. Now make sure that it's the correct way around. The 17mm is at the bottom and we're going to put the MDF on the top. There's a bigger gap at the top. We're going to line it up and we're going to position a hole in two places. We're going to screw it in so we can remove it if we want to. So where we're going to position that is going to be 1 centimetre, hasn't got to be too precise, 1 centimetre from this end and 10mm or 1 centimetre from this end. Where those two overlap is going to be where we're going to position. Not the most accurate of marks, but that's fine for our what we're doing. We'll do the same on the opposite side. So it's a 1 centimetre mark here and a 1 centimetre mark here. Yeah, I'm not particularly proud of what I've done here, but there we go. We've got our two crosshairs to indicate where we're going to drill. Drilling, we're going to take a pilot hole drill, that is a thin drill bit, and we're going to drill through both pieces of wood at the same time. So make sure it's flush and it's flush, and what we can do now is we can take a G-clamp and we can clamp this in position. Just have it so it's just gripping slightly so you can still move it with your fingers. And then when you're happy, we give it one last turn and we clamp it in place. Pilot hole, make sure it's going the correct way, it's going clockwise. I position with my thumb on the crosshairs, make sure it's perpendicular. Same on the other side, finger on the crosshairs, push it into place. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to countersink the holes. That's the countersink there, remember that from last year. Just again, position it on that pilot hole. We're just going to go a little bit down. The idea is that the diameter of the top of the screw you're using is going to be the same diameter there, so that it sits flush. So either that diameter or slightly bigger is fine for what we're trying to achieve. Don't go too fast. If you go through, you drill a fat hole and then in the big. Now that's technically what we should do is clear a bigger hole, but so we're just going to use a pilot hole through both. We're now going to screw that into position like so. Before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to find the centre of this by crossing the corners, sorry, and creating crosshairs like so. And we are going to pilot hole weld through there first. And then we're going to go through with a 10mm drill bit. That's a 10mm drill bit there. It measures 10mm across here, and it says 10mm on the shank there. Okay, now what we don't want to do is to drill through our piece of MDF without a pilot hole and without getting sufficient support underneath. So for example, if I drill through that, you can see the problem. It just splits out, you get breakout on the other side, and that's not ideal. If that does happen, we can take some sandpaper and we can clean it up the best we can. We could also take a circular file, and again we can just clean it up a little bit, try not to increase the size of the hole. Try not to increase the size of the hole, we can just clean it up, removing any bits of fluff. But we want to avoid that. What we're going to do instead is pilot hole first, then we're going to take our 10mm drill bit, and in an ideal world we go halfway and then halfway. That's not always going to happen because it's so thin. But you must make sure is when you drill into a nice smooth piece of wood, not into an existing hole. The wood is going to support our MDF. A little tiny movement that way, and all the way through that way. We've got some tiny bits there to remove. A piece of sandpaper is fine. 1 or 2 strokes with a circular file to make sure it's nice and clean. We don't want anything catching as we try and turn. Now we go back, we take some screws.
Excuse me.
We take some screws and a screwdriver, and we're going to screw that into position. Because we've countersunk, it should be nice and flush at the top there. And now we're ready for our next stage.